Nick, if you want to go ahead further, show us different kinds of drying that you do and educate us a little bit on those, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. Let me first tell you a thing about how we dry it. And with how we dry it, I mean about the temperature, humidity conditions. And then later I will show you the two main methods of drying. And drying is something we always do in multiple stages. This is something, we do not only do that for cannabis, we do that for all the crops that we dry. So for cannabis, we start with a low humidity and an intensive airflow, because when the cannabis is just harvested, it has a moisture content of around 75–80%. What we want to do is get rid of about half of that moisture in the first 24 hours. We want to do that because the first 24 hours are very critical for mold growth. Definitely when we talk about medicinal products, something we want to prevent. So we start in stage 1 with a low humidity and an intensive airflow. This stage takes about a day, as I just said, and this will dry the outer shell of the cannabis, as you can see here. So the outer shell is dried, but the inner shell is not dried yet. So after stage 1, we will move to stage 2, and then we actually increase humidity in the drying room. We increase humidity to make sure that the buds really start drying from the inside to the outside. Then we go from stage 2 to stage 3 at the moment that our ingoing air has the same humidity value as our outgoing air. And if our ingoing air has the same humidity value as the outgoing air, we can conclude that at this humidity value, no further drying takes place. And we can also draw the conclusion that everywhere in your tray drying system or hang drying system, it will be homogeneously dried. So then we move from stage 2 to 3, if ingoing and outgoing are the same. In stage 3, we lower humidity a bit. Again, we move to stage 4, if ingoing and outgoing are the same. Then we go to from 4 to 5 is the same story. And in a certain point in stage 5, there is an equilibrium between the humidity in the air and the product, which is perfect for our end product. We want our end product to be dry to 9, 10, 11%. And if you set the humidity in the drying room to the correct values, you will be always dried to this extent. To summarize this, I have a graph for you. And this is a graph. The green line is humidity that we set in the processor. The brown line is humidity of the ingoing air. The blue line is humidity of the outgoing air. The yellowish line at the bottom is ingoing minus outgoing. So if we first follow the yellow line, you can see that we dry a lot in the beginning and then we gradually dry on. Let's follow the green line. Stage 1, we start with a low humidity. We actually increase humidity in stage 2. And from there, steps-wise, we build it down. So that is the humidity principle we use for drying. For temperature, we do always want to stay at 20 degrees or lower. We want to stay at 20 degrees or lower to preserve all the cannabinoids and terpenes in the product. Especially the terpenes start evaporating when you get above 20, 21-ish. So we mainly dry at 18 degrees Celsius. Drying will take you, if we want to dry to 10%, it takes a minimum of 5 days and a maximum of about 10 days. It's very cultivar dependent how long it will take. So some cultivars we really can get only dried in 5 days, other cultivars will take us 10 days. And for drying, we will have 2 different methods. And one method is tray drying, the other method is hang drying. Personally, I believe that for recreational purposes, hang drying might be better. Because with tray drying, you will get a little bit of flat spots. Flat spots, is it a big issue for a medicinal product? No. Is it an issue for a recreational product? A little bit, yes, because if they go to the dispensary, want to buy some nice buds, they don't want to have any flat spots. But for medicinal, I do believe that tray drying is the best because it's more controlled and it gives you a little bit better homogeneous result. So for tray drying, we have developed our own special trays, which are 40 by 60 centimeters. And we also add HEPA filters to the installation. You will have a layer of HEPA filters in the bottom, the trays in the middle, and another layer of HEPA filters on top. we make sure that the ingoing air is filtered. So our product is dried with clean air. And our outgoing air is also filtered to make cleaning of the rest of the installation a lot easier. We have a drying cabinet, mainly used for R&D purposes. This can do 18, 16, or 24 kilos, because we have 3 versions of them. Then we have the mobile drying pellets. Mobile drying pellets are used at larger GMP growers. And they do about 32 kilos dried per pellet. But in one system, you can have 2 pallets, 10 pallets. It's a modular system, so for us, that does not matter too much. Then we also have the drying cells, where we place those mobile drying pellets vertically on top of each other. A little issue with the drying cells is that they're operated with a forklift, and getting a forklift GMP certified, that's very tricky. And then we have a 4th system, which is a hang drying system. For hang drying, we actually flip the air down. We have a bottom-up airflow because the plant is a bit conic, and we want to get under the skirt of the plant. That's why we call this, let's say, the Marilyn Monroe effect. Then we condition the air here through a set of filters, back to the floor, through the hanging plants. So you will still have a closed air loop system, but with hanging plants, which recreational growers always prefer.
Yeah, I think that really helps me and the viewers, saying we play with humidity, we play with temperature, and we play with airflow. And this could differ between hemp versus cannabis. And this could also differ between different cultivars they are using and the level of moisture they want to attain. Have the usage of the HEPA filters to ensure the cleanliness of the process, the compliances, and you are also playing with hang drying, which is bottom up, not top down for the drying. Now, does this get us from like a 70 to 80% moisture down to a desired level? And does this differ for recreational crops versus your medicinal crops, or crops that you are doing for extraction versus for flower sales?
And there is a small difference between medicinal and recreational crops, and that's mainly for medicinal crops, they often skip the curing stage. And in curing, they want to do curing to get some chlorophyll out of the product, and also to have some monoterpenes change into sesquiterpenes. So for medicinal crop, they just want it to be dried as fast as possible without exceeding temperature limits to 10%. For recreational crops, they often want to dry to, for example, 15%, and then dry it down in the curing stage to 10%.
And for extraction, if you're just using for
extraction, they just, for most of the time, for extraction, 10% is perfect. So they want to get it to 10% as fast as possible. Also for extraction, most of the time, it doesn't really matter if there is still chlorophyll in the product, for example.
And this completely differs in case of hemp, what Tom is doing.
In case of hemp, for the hemp seeds and the hemp stalks, it is indeed very much a different process than cannabis drying, because they are different products. But for the hemp flower, it is it's quite similar, but only the main difference is in the materials of the installation itself, because hemp for CBD or other non-psychoactive cannabinoids is differently regulated than the recreational and medicinal cannabis. It is possible to use wooden parts to make the installation larger at a cheaper price. So we apply our installations in larger drying cells or in larger drying containers. For example, in a container you can dry 750 kilos of dry CBD flower in 5 to 10 days. And for an installation for hemp, that would be at a lower price compared to cannabis, but that is also dependent on the fact that the price of a CBD product is lower than the price of a THC product.
As I hear that the process, and I think that's what I want to get clarified for the viewers, is hemp flower versus cannabis flower is a similar process, but just the installations for those will be different and maybe a larger scale. Whereas for stocks and seeds, of course, because that's a completely different product, it's going to be different.